The major source of pain in your life is people, the people around you. And you're not maybe thinking in these terms, but I'll explain what I mean in the following way. So we want to be able to feel like in life with our friends, our colleagues, our loved ones, that we can influence them, that we can move them in our direction, that we have the ability to persuade them to do something that's in our interest. And the feeling that we can't do that is deeply painful. It causes lots of amounts of frustration and resentment that can sit inside of us and linger and kind of ruin our attitude towards life. Sometimes there are toxic people in this world, and they enter our lives, and we didn't foresee them. Someone who's a raging narcissist or whatever, and we get dragged into a relationship with them, or we hire them as a business partner or an employee, and they ruin our lives, and they cause all kinds of emotional damage that can take years to get over. And then another level is we have friends and partners and spouses, and sometimes the connections between us, are very fragile and thin. Our friendships are continually breaking up. Our friends do something that surprises us and upsets us. And so we often find that our relationships with people we're not connecting to the most important law of human nature, is that we deny that there is such a thing as human nature. So I have chapters on all of these sort of primal forces that I believe govern us. Our irrationality, the fact that emotions control us, the fact that we tend to be self-absorbed and that we're all sort of narcissists, that we are prone to feeling envy, to constantly comparing ourselves to other people, that we have a dark side, that we have aggressive tendencies. But when we think of these things, it's always the other person. I'm rational and you're irrational. I care about people, you're the narcissist. I'm a nice, wonderful person, you're aggressive or passive-aggressive. I never feel envy. I don't really have a dark side. We have a tremendous need to feel of ourselves as being superior. You don't understand the people that you're dealing with. You really don't know who they are. You're walking around thinking that you know your wife or your husband, your children, your boss, your friends, but you really don't have a clue. Yeah. You don't understand their experience. You don't really know what they think of you, actually, as well. Most of the time, you're projecting onto them your own images. Let's say, you had a particularly bad relationship with your father or your mother, and you don't like people in authority because of the relationship to your father. And so you meet somebody who's powerful, who has authority, and you hate them. You have a bad instant reaction because you're projecting onto them some image from your own childhood. I'm trying to say that people have a character, and what I mean by that is it's their core, it's who they are, it's something very deep. It comes from their DNA, there's a genetic component. It comes from their early childhood and the kind of attachment they had to their parents. It comes from their early experiences with friends and teachers and at school, and it makes them who they are, and their character tends to be revealed in certain things that you must pay attention to. And the reason it's so important is you want to be able to judge people by their character. You want to know what runs them from deep, deep within. Because if you don't, if you make a mistake, you will hire them as a business partner, or you'll get involved in a relationship, and it'll be a disaster because you didn't see that actually they have very negative patterns and they only come out later. We all wear masks. We all try to present ourselves as being noble and great. But the mask comes down in certain elements. So you want to look at how they treat their children, their spouse, their employees. They might be nice to you because they want something out of you. But when their back is turned and they're talking to other people, they're the biggest raging asshole around. That gives you signs that they're trying to disguise this from you. But in the little details of life, they kind of reveal who they are. If you understand that you are the one projecting this fear of abandonment or hostility onto other people, then you can stop it. You could stop it, and you could realize that that woman you thought was about to abandon you was actually just in a bad mood or just was dealing with something else. And then you can break out of this horrible pattern that's ruining your life. Yeah. But you can only begin to do that when you confront your own demons, when you confront these elements in your character that are causing you to repeat over and over again the same thing. People are always showing, their best side. They love their job. They have a great partner, a great family, etc. And they tend to disguise the bad things, the depressions or the negative emotions that they're experiencing. And so you're feeling envy. You feel, wow, God, my life isn't as good as their life. If only I had their childhood, if only I had their loving parents. But you're not seeing the reality. And probably if you got closer to them, if you were inside their family and you saw how they interact with their children and their spouse, you would realize that they're presenting to you this very idealized picture, that it's not as rosy as it looks. Yeah. And then you don't have to feel envy. You don't have to compare yourself. If you could approach social life in the same way, where you have this flow, where people are just facts of nature, they just are who they are. They're not anything, they're not people that hate you or love you, etc. They just have their own problems, their own issues, and it has nothing to do with you. If you can get into that sense where it's not about you and your emotions, you can feel that kind of light, liberating feeling that you have in your work, where you're focused and things are just what they are. It's a very light, liberating feeling. You do have aggressive tendencies. We all have aggressive tendencies. It's our nature, and I explained why we have them. And if you're aware of that, you can take that energy that we all have and actually channel it into something productive. If you stop denying it, and you realize you have this energy, you can turn it into being ambitious and pouring that aggression into becoming something great, into making something great, into using that energy to fuel your persistence, to push past any kind of adversity, to be aggressive when it comes to getting your way and getting what you want. And I even talk about the positive aspects of anger and how to channel your anger into your work. I use a lot of anger in my books because I am angry about people's hypocrisies and the stupidity that we constantly confront. And I use that anger to fuel my writing. You think you had a golden childhood. Nobody had as good a childhood as they believe, because you're in retrospect, you think everything was wonderful. But actually, children are very insecure, are very susceptible, are very vulnerable, and are constantly feeling emotions of fear and anxiety and resentment and anger and hostility that we don't realize later on, but they're very much within us. And so your childhood contains keys to who you are in the present. And not all of it's bad, some of it's really good. We live in a culture that's very avoidant of death. Human nature is such that even from primitive times, we're the only animal that's aware of our own mortality. And it's had a profound impact on us. It's sort of what led to the creation of religions and the belief of an afterlife, that we're all going to maybe go to a heaven, So we're very much afraid, deeply afraid of this feeling of death. And in our culture, it has a different form. We don't maybe believe in the afterlife, but what we do is we deny death very deeply. We deny its presence. We never see anybody who dies. So I want to open up, we tend to turn our back towards death, and I want you to turn around and face it square in the eye every single day. It's not a negative thing. It's an immensely beautiful thing. First of all, you are alive, you feel that you're alive, but by not realizing that you're dead, that you're contained inside of you, your mortality, you're only half alive. You're only dealing with part of the truth. And so in Zen philosophy and samurais, they want you to connect with that dead energy in your gut, in your hara right here, so that it'll make you feel more alive. And then realizing that the people around you are going to die will make you connect with them on a much deeper level. If you've ever been, for whatever reason, alone a lot, let's say you had an illness, or let's say you're depressed, or let's say you're in a foreign country, you'll notice that when you're suddenly thrust among people, you feel a little bit awkward. It takes a little while to adjust. But in the opposite, if you're very social, if you're always around people, you're going to events and you're meeting a lot of them, something kicks in and it's easy to be around them, and you're more attuned to people. Well, we're not around people enough. We're not interacting with them. We're interacting with them virtually, or we're immersed in our technology. And so just by the fact that you're out there socializing with people, one-on-one communication, you're going to develop this skill. We're animals. We're living, breathing animals.